Howdy neighbors, and welcome to the homestead today. Hope you're having a wonderful and blessed day, and appreciate you tuning in and watching us today. And today's video is why we grow what we grow. And before we get started, if you're not a subscriber, if you'd hit that subscribe button, if you give us a thumbs up or give comments, certainly helps grow our channel, and we appreciate all of you that's helped us. We've continue to hit milestones with the channel. We just hit 5,000 subscribers recently and growing even from there. And we want to say congratulations to our winners on the Roundhouse overalls, the brand that I wear. And these Roundhouse overalls are made here in Oklahoma, so they're U.S. made, and I certainly like them. I've wore overalls for years, all my life, I guess you could say, and I'd wear them to church and everywhere if Josie would let me. But these are available in striped and solid, and I've got a couple pairs of striped, and we've got the button up and the zipper fly. And if you're one of our winners, I just want to say congratulations to you. We had 3 winners that each got a pair of overalls apiece. So I hope you enjoy those, and they'll be getting out to you pretty soon. And so today, just to start off with a little bit, why we grow what we grow here at the homestead. And number one thing I would say is don't grow stuff that you're not going to eat. And there have been, in every year, we grow a few experimental things, maybe a heirloom variety of tomato or something just for fun. But for our real homestead use, heavy duty use, I use tried and true favorites that I've used over the years. But the one thing is, you want to grow stuff that you'll eat. And I hear people sometimes, they'll say, well, I grow tomatoes, but none of us like it. And I'm like, well, why would you grow tomatoes if nobody in your family will eat them? So I'm going to start off first with the cucumbers and have a little talk, and I'll show you our cucumbers this year have really taken off. And I've got the soaker hose going on them right now, but what we use cucumbers for is Josie pickles them. We really enjoy her pickle recipe. And but would this be something that you would have to have? Certainly not. We also love eating them raw, and putting vinegar and stuff like that, soaking them in vinegar and eating them that way. And then my thing is dill pickles. I love dill pickles. So if you were in the old time way of homesteading and stuff, dill pickles or sweet pickles or bread and butter pickles, that type of stuff, and relishes like chow chow and different things were used as a filler for folks when they were eating meals. And so pickles serve as a filler. It may not have a whole lot of nutritional values. Cucumbers may not. They are good for you. They do have vitamins and things in them, but may not be the best thing to eat. But in a grid down situation, which we talk about here sometimes, they would make great fillers to help your meal grow further. As a kid, you would have big meals like at grandma's house and stuff, and I had an aunt down the road here that raised us, or didn't really raise us, but she fed us a lot. My mom and dad divorced when I was about 10, 11-year-old, something like that. So we would get off the bus at my aunt's house, and she cooked supper for us. And man, she was a good cook. But she did things that I thought was really tasty, but she did them to make things go further. And one thing she did was canned pickles, and that was because she knew I liked pickles. She could put a jar of pickles out. All of our family loved dill pickles. So we would munch on those, which helped make the other food. If you get filled up kind of on pickles and stuff, it helps make your food bill grow further. I know today most people aren't concerned about food or worried about that, but should we get into a situation, also they're just a good treat. The dill pickles that Josie makes, I love to eat them on a hamburger or cheeseburger. I love to just take a jar and open and eat them little whole ones, and she tries to do some jars in these little small pickles, and I really enjoy that. But but used to, people would do things to make stuff go further, and that's this is more of a side item. I grow a good sized row of them because you need quite a few to can. Also, my mom has a stomach issue, and so she will eat cucumbers. Some reason doesn't bother her stomach, and she loves to snack on cucumbers. And she peels them and eats them just raw, and she just loves them. And for some reason, she thinks ours is the best cucumbers that she's ever had. And so she always, every year, she wants cucumbers. And I'm getting enough now, Josie's canning and stuff, that I've got to get some to my mom and dad. But my mom, it seems like something that will stay down and doesn't upset her stomach. So cucumbers always make me want to belch. And the variety we grow here is a pickling variety, and the reason for that's because we pickle them. Boston Pickler is the variety I've grown for years, and I love them. I always keep extra seed back and in the freezer, and if I have a bad crop. Now this started out this year kind of slow, but now the vines are clear up to the top and everything, as you can see. But I want to tell you a quick story about pickles. My great-grandmother lived in town in here at Gore, and she had a little homestead in town. She had two what they call city lots, and so she had a milk cow, had a garden, chickens, all that stuff right there in town. And you know, that's been now 40 years ago when she passed, so roughly in that length of time. But anyway, when you went to her home, her treat was to give you a dill pickle. Instead of giving you candy or something like that, she gave you a dill pickle. And I think it was because that's something she could raise real cheap. But all the grandchildren, when you went there, was just eager to get a dill pickle. And they knew that's what she was going to give you. She'd wrap it up in a little napkin and give you. And so my folks' rule was that if you went to Granny's house, before we got there, they'd say, y'all better not ask for anything, and certainly do not ask for a pickle. Now, if she offers you one, you can have it, but you can't ask. So we wouldn't ask, and we'd be sitting there and just couldn't wait till Granny would say, y'all want a dill pickle? And of course, us kids was like, yes, we want a dill pickle, and we'd eat that. And we just thought that was the neatest thing. And the way she wrapped it up in the little napkin and done everything was just special and dear to my heart, and I still remember it after all these years. But one thing, me and my cousin, we went down to her house one day. He lived down like a block away or something, and I'd spent the night at his home, and the next morning we would just roam around. Used to, people could do that. You could just let your kids roam wherever. And we were probably 9, 10-year-old kids, but we somewhere in that range. But we went down to my great-granny's house, and they called her Pinky, and Granny Pinky. So we went down to Granny Pinky's house, and we were wanting a snack, and we thought surely we get there she would give us a dill pickle. So we'll go down, and we love to see her anyway. So he said, I'm kind of hungry, let's go down to Granny Pinky's. So we go down there, and we're waiting for Granny Pinky to offer us a dill pickle like she always does. Well, she didn't. She never offered at all, and for a long time. And finally we was fixing to go, and she said, well, boys, she said, I would give you a dill pickle, offer you one, but she said, I don't have any dill pickles. Well, she had a jar on her table that looked like dill pickles. And so my cousin said, well, right there, Granny, is a jar. And she said, those are sweet pickles. And said, you boys won't like sweet pickles. And so my cousin, he just kind of keeps hum-hawing around. He wanted one of those pickles. And I'll have to tell you, they look good, and they look like dills. She said, okay, I'm going to give y'all one, but if you don't eat it, you're going to get in trouble. And so we got them, and I didn't like it, and my cousin didn't like it. And so we head away from Grandma's house, and we waited till we got down the road, and we threw them in the ditch there, because I was kind of afraid Granny, she looked like Granny Clampett on the Beverly Hillbillies. And of course, I wouldn't even know what that show was back then, but I really thought she might get you, and she kind of sometimes acted like one, even though she's a sweet little old lady. I'd heard stories about her spanking my dad and some of his siblings, how she disciplined them and stuff, and she was a pretty strict disciplinarian. But anyway, I'll show you a few other things we have here in the garden. And one thing why I grow stuff in the garden that I grow what I grow is because I enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, you aren't likely to stay with it. One thing is, if you like to eat it and it's fun to grow, then you'll more likely stay with it. So I'll show you here the beets. Now, we pickle the beets, and I did have a lady in our church. She died about a year ago. I would usually bring her beets, or Josie would can her some and bring them, or bring them fresh and she could can them. But she had gotten sickly where she couldn't raise a garden. And beets are another thing that's very healthy for you. They have come out with studies that beets are just very good, and they have beet powder and stuff for you. So besides being healthy and nutritious, they're tasty to eat. Now, I'm not real fond of beets, just to be honest with you. To me, they taste like dirt. But Josie loves them, and there's a lot of people in our family that just love pickled beets as the main way that they like them. Then over here is our turnips. Turnips, if you want to talk about something that will make you a lot of food for a very little effort, this is a very small packet of seeds. Did this whole entire row here. I've got the greens to eat on. If you like turnip greens, I love turnip greens. We put bacon grease and stuff in ours and really make them unhealthy, but they taste so healthy. They taste good. One time I asked the doctor for a diet because I had high cholesterol and all that, and I didn't want to take medicines, and he said, well, if it tastes good, spit it out. And that's about the truth to the matter. So, but anyway, and also the bulb on these things. We love to take the turnip bulb and we peel them and fry them like you do potatoes. I'm hoping Josie sometime will get brave enough and be able to do some recipes and show you, because a lot of people tell me, I've never had them fried, and I've had people come back and tell me that they tried them and they couldn't believe how good they were fried. Of course, fried probably isn't the most healthiest way. Probably the most healthiest way for the bulb is to boil it and mash it up like mashed potatoes and add you a little hot pepper to it. Now that really is a tasty treat. And like I say, the greens are real good. Josie don't much care for the greens, but I do. And a mess of turnip greens is really, really good. I actually buy turnip greens canned and keep on hand that are these Old Glory, and they're already pre-seasoned and stuff. And so if I want some of them, it's just quick and easy to open up a quick can of Old Glory turnip greens. And here's our peppers, and they're really making our bell peppers. I keep the sweet peppers. I've got 5 plants here this year, and that'll make more peppers than what we'll ever be able to use. And they are loaded down, as you can see there. There is some big bell peppers, and Josie will take those and chop them up and freeze them. And she uses some in recipes, like if you make salsa and different things, you can freeze them. And these little pepper plants here, there's just a couple on each plant, but these dudes, when it gets hot, for some reason here in Oklahoma, our peppers will grow. That one's got peppers on it. I don't know if you can see the peppers or not, but the peppers really do well here. And we will end up taking and putting up a bunch in the freezer. We still got a bunch from last year. Now, bell peppers are very healthy for you also. And some people call these sweet peppers. Bell peppers is what we commonly refer to them here in Oklahoma. But they can be used in so many things. I love to take and make an omelet every once in a while and chop up fresh onions and fresh bell pepper in it. And if I got some fresh tomatoes, you can dice up in it. And if you like jalapenos in it, you can make you a really tasty little vegetable omelet. Or if you got some source of meat like ham or something, bacon, sausage, whatever, you can really make. But that's why we grow those. It really tastes stuff up. If you have spaghetti sauce and you add a little bell pepper to your spaghetti sauce, it just really makes it good. But there's unlimited ways to use bell pepper, and these bell peppers at the store are at least $1 a piece at our store, and sometimes more, and that's outrageous for just a bell pepper, and they're so easy to grow. The next thing is watermelon and cantaloupe, and I just planted a hill of each. One hill of cantaloupe here and one hill of watermelon, and this year they have done really, really well. I've got little cantaloupe there, and got a little watermelon there, and another one that's hid out over here. Yeah, right up under that squash leaf there. They have just vined out and went everywhere. But there probably ain't a whole lot of health benefits to watermelon and cantaloupe. But if you kind of got a sweet tooth, instead of eating ice cream or something that's got that's man-made stuff, you can pick something fresh and natural out of your garden and chill you a watermelon or cantaloupe. And I'm not the biggest eater of this stuff. I really just don't care about cantaloupe at all. Watermelon's something that I will eat a little bit of occasionally. When we were kids, we had all the watermelon and cantaloupe you could eat, and they grew them here locally, and big fields of them, like, you know, hundreds of acres of watermelons and cantaloupes, and they shipped them out of here. They still do it. And we would always get about all that you wanted. There was farmers that, if you knew somebody that was growing them, they'd pretty much just give them away. But we grow those just as more of a dessert thing. There's something good that will go along with your meal if you want it. Now, squash, and these are two young squash plants that are just now starting to produce. These squash plants here, I actually burned them up. I fertilized them with Dr. Earths, and I think I got too much on them. I was trying to really get them to grow, and some of the others have died, and I probably just need... I've examined them real close and haven't found squash bugs, so I don't believe it's squash bugs or nothing. But after I put the fertilizer on them, they just wasn't growing like these down here were. So I thought, well, I would really fertilize them, and I think I burned them up just a little bit. But anyway, squash is something, we like it fried. That's pretty much the best way. I have had zucchini bread, and also these zucchini squashes. I'm going to go ahead and pick this one because the vine's dying. But you can take that, or even let it get bigger, and cut it in half and scoop out the seeds with a spoon, and fill that with like taco meat, seasoned meat, and bake that in the oven. And I tell you, that's delicious. My wife's stepdad does that, and we really love eating squash that way. But squash is something that you either have a lot of or none at all of, so we give a lot away. And but we mostly like it fried. That's my preferred method, the easiest way, and it's just so tasty. We'll come in for supper. There's been several suppers lately that all we've had, and you really hear the bees in here. They're really humming around and going after these. But we'll come in and eat have fried squash, fried okra, sliced tomatoes, all that kind of stuff. And I tell you, you just can't get much better than that. And then we grow green beans, and I just picked these green beans, these 2 rows here. These are jade variety. Green beans are something that is easy to can, but I will give you a heads up on your green beans is pick the pods when they're tender. Like this right here is a young, but don't let them beans get too big in there. If you do, we don't like that. And they don't taste as good, and when you can them, they kind of have a gritty taste to them. Them two there are just the right size, but this had a bunch of little beans on the vines, and I left them. But this is something that'll go a long ways. Now, if you like green beans, if you like them Frenched, a lot of people like to have them French cut, and you can actually buy a cutter that you can run them through and can them French cut if you want to. We love them so well whole, I don't know why we would need to worry about the French cut. Now, if we buy them at the store, we do French cut them, but they're easy to do. The worst thing is it takes some time canning them. And my wife's grandmother, she used to have a story about beans, and she said that one time they were somewhere and somebody had opened up a can of green beans and they were going to cook at a meal, and the person just reached in and grabbed one and ate out of the jar. Well, the jar had botulism and it killed them. It had that poison in there, so they ended up dying. But you want to cook them really good before you eat them, at least 20 minutes, they say, in a hard boil. before you eat them if it's out of a can. And I would think fresh, you're going to have to cook them 20-30 minutes probably if they're fresh anyway, but you want to make sure. But when you're in the process of it, make sure and get you a ball canning book and follow it to the T, the amount of pressure it says, the amount of time, and do what you're supposed to do. I think you'll find great success in doing that. We also have black-eyed peas, and black-eyed peas is an old southern thing. And I like the purple hull. That's what I got down through here. And you can see what a row of beans all the way down through here. And those are tasty. You can dry them. You can freeze them. You could leave them dried without even freezing them. If you get them good and dry, you can can them. And I think it's neat to have them canned and go ahead and have them cooked and ready, so you just can warm them up and, you know, cook them 20 or 30 minutes, warm them up right out of the jar, just like if you bought store-bought. And then here's okra. Okra has a lot of benefits in helping you lower cholesterol. And one thing we do with our okra, maybe Josie will show you sometimes, she fries it with no breading. If you're into low-carb stuff, you know that the breading's not good for you. But she started frying it with no breading, and it is delicious. And I also like it pickled. I like it boiled. Just about any way. I prefer it fried, though, with no breading is the way I've gotten to where I like it. Here we have hot peppers. The hot peppers probably aren't a whole lot of benefit to them, except they season things good. This little pepper plant here is a habanero, and it hasn't put on any peppers yet. This in here is a jalapeno, and I just picked a bunch off for Josie to put in pickles. And this here is a cayenne pepper plant, and they're not quite long enough and ready. They'll usually get a lot longer, the peppers will, than that, but it's making, and the bushes will get taller. They're just now really taking off good. And this is a hot banana pepper. My son wanted those. I need to pick them right there. I prefer the mild ones. And then my most favorite thing out of the garden of all is tomatoes. And we grow a lot of tomatoes. This year we've got a really good crop of tomatoes. And you can see all of the tomatoes down through here. And I see one turning ripe right there. And that, looky there at that pretty tomato. They're making fruit up through here. Now we're hitting yesterday around 100 degrees, and today's supposed to be 100 degrees. So these little blossoms that's up here are probably not going to set any fruit. Unfortunately, they're probably done for right now. But I'll let these continue to grow. I'll keep watering them and hoping that they'll set fruit. But usually these upper blossoms, when it gets this hot, they won't set fruit. But I'll continue to keep my vines in here, continue to fertilize, water, keep them coming along. And when it gets fall, or towards fall in September, sometime in there, our temperatures usually, we've had such weird weather, ain't no telling what's going to happen here. But if the temperature ever starts going back down, they will start setting fruit again up here in this newer growth. And by that time, we'll have all these other tomatoes ate up. Look what big, beautiful tomatoes that's got in there. And we kind of had a slow go this year with the tomatoes, but they're really coming on now, and it got a bunch of young little tomatoes. I'm having trouble keeping the vines all pulled in. I got to get down this row and get them pulled in here, and I will. It just takes a little while. But anyhow, that's the tomatoes. But that's my most favorite thing. My favorite item of the garden, of course, is tomatoes. And I can take a plate of sliced tomatoes and just make a meal out of it. Slice up a couple of tomatoes, have them on a plate, put a little bit of salt on them. Josie loves them with gravy over the tomatoes, and maybe you've had them that way. I don't like them with the gravy on them. They're so good the way they are. I don't know why you'd want to mess up a good thing. But anyway, the tomatoes, we use them in a lot of different things. You can make salsa out of tomatoes. You can make spaghetti sauce. Canned tomatoes, we use a bunch of canned tomatoes. And what we do is we take the canned tomatoes and put them in, like when we make chili, or I just made a pot of stew yesterday, and I opened up a can of the tomatoes that's like 2-year-old in 2018. They were still just as fresh, smelt good, just like they were just canned. And so we're real careful, make sure the lid's still sealed, but you need to do that even if it's this year's crop. But we're still eating on tomatoes that we've had a while, but we eat a lot of chili and stew, and we'll open up a can of them whole canned tomatoes and put in there. We make some tomato juice out of them. Josie will make salsa, just all kinds of recipes. Spaghetti sauce, she makes real good spaghetti sauce. If we have enough tomatoes, she'll take and cook them down and make a good homemade spaghetti sauce that you can't buy in a can at the store. Anyway, folks, I've went long enough here. This is kind of a long video, I guess, today, but I just wanted to share with you about the garden and tell you why we grow what we grow. And so you need to have a plan of action. You need to have a reason you're doing what you're doing. And if you don't have, they say if you don't plan, you'll plan to fail. So we need to have a plan, and the Bible says to have a vision, write it down, make it plain. So you need to know where you're headed at. It says without a vision the people perish. And so we have a method to the madness that goes on here. And this garden may not look really big to some people, but we grow a bunch of food here. In fact, we grow more than what we can possibly use here and have to give food away. Now this year we're going to can more and put up a little bit more just because of the times we're in, and we kind of got a feeling that besides feeding ourselves, we may have to feed family and friends and stuff some. So, and we already are, so you know, it's just the way things go. But we give stuff away and to our family and friends because we love them. Sometimes we give stuff away just as a treat, you know, like canned pickles and things, but it's kind of a gift of love because it takes your labor and your time to do it. Anyway, we appreciate you watching today. May God richly bless you, and we'll see you next time here at Cedar Creek Homestead. We're gone.